World building is the architecture of belief. For audiences to suspend disbelief, a story's world must feel coherent, intentional, and alive. Does your story world measure up? In the following weeks, we will explore narrative history's significant role in classic storytelling, from examples found on prehistoric cave walls to the doorstep of AI and virtual reality. This journey has brought us closer than ever before to achieving holodeck status. For millennia, man's art and architecture have been engaged in an intercourse to create a coming-to-life narrative phenomenon we call immersion. Key to this coming-to-life phenomenon is the application of technology to create the illusion that a story's narrative world is emerging from the written page, canvas, silver, or digital screen. This process of art emerging into architecture and world building creates fertile ground for the immersive experience and suspension of disbelief. The designer's task is to guide the audience seamlessly into the story's narrative world. Narrative world environments are not mere decorative backdrops, but ecosystems that become gateways to audience immersion. Every choice the production designer influences, from location selection to architectural style to props, dressing, and costume design, must connect and create a cohesive world, so believable and trustworthy that the audience is magically induced to suspend disbelief and enter the experience. The art of production design is to become a magician who can convince the audience to temporarily set aside logic and buy into impossible scenarios, such as the existence of Sven the reindeer from Frozen, or believing that the magician can harmlessly saw a lovely lady in half. This requires the audience to suspend disbelief, accept an illogical trust born out of the designer's ability to trigger emotions by creating levels of environmental fidelity that come from the very latest in technological accomplishments that amaze. When these technologies amaze in support of narrative charisma, moral imperatives, and uniqueness, the narrative triad will fuse, inducing audience immersion. Not all design worlds are epic. This is when the designer must be an even more accomplished magician to render these everyday environments in a manner that is both unique and captivating. The garage, the urban alley, the kitchen that has filled thousands of hours of screen time. How does the designer make magic out of these everyday worlds? The answer lies in two objectives: the search for ways to see these everyday spaces in a new perspective, and when possible, using them not as a place to kill screen time, but as the only logical place that a major climactic moment can unfold. The lessons we learn from history direct us to achieving audience immersion by addressing a fundamental design tool we call the Narrative Triad. The Narrative Triad has functioned over thousands of years of human storytelling history, with protagonists fulfilling their story mission within dramatic narrative worlds, as virtual as their evolving technologies would allow. When any side of the triad is weak, it leads to a breakdown in story structure, allowing for story contradictions and resulting in audience ennui. Before embarking on any production, the storyteller would be wise to see if the narrative triad achieves parity and fusion. In achieving fusion, each side of the triad has a responsibility to empower itself, and by doing so, its partners will, by force of parity, also try to match that power status. As the triad increases in power, fusion becomes achievable, and the gateway to immersion will swing open. Empathy and charisma power up the protagonist and the antagonist in your story. The protagonist is the hero or heroine, whose fate the reader or audience most closely follows, and who is opposed by a villain. The villain or antagonist poses obstacles and complications, creating conflicts that reveal the protagonist's strengths and weaknesses. The power of a protagonist or antagonist is defined by the magnitude of their charisma and the empathy they evoke in the audience. Ethics and moral imperatives are tools used to power up the story mission. Without a mission or goal, there can be no compelling narrative. Like a ship without a rudder, the missionless story wanders aimlessly and quickly induces ennui. In evaluating a story mission, we look to its ability to metaphor a moral imperative that the audience can relate to and subscribe to. These imperatives are many, but a few of the most powerful include love, survival, revenge, and hope. World building involves more than just the setting. It can be as complex as a unique venue with exotic creatures, rich political histories, and even new religions. Or it can be as simple as tweaking the history of the world we live in. Narrative environments are the worlds where the protagonists carry out their mission. How magical was the Garden of Eden or Never Never Land in Peter Pan? How mysterious and challenging was the Mars of the warlord John Carter? The key to a narrative environment's power lies in its uniqueness. Uniqueness is clear if we are flying into space or exploring fantasy worlds. However, even the ordinary can achieve narrative uniqueness when presented cinematically in a new, unseen editorial style. In this discussion, we have identified the three elements of the narrative triad that must complement and reinforce one another and be held in parity and balance if audience immersion and suspension of disbelief are to be achieved. The narrative world created by the production designer, if done properly, will invite and entice the audience into that world by creating powerful environments that induce parity and balance within the narrative triad.